Grammar Bits number 9 this week is going to be a review of all of the different types of sentences that we've been working on in grammar as a means of practicing writing. We've looked a lot at identifying the different types of sentences, but we haven't worked on students actually writing them. So this week we're going to do some practice during class of writing these sentences. I will be sitting and typing the sentences in so we can look at them and correct them and get some repeated exposure to the different sentences. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, due Monday, they will have a paragraph typed using varied sentences. And so they'll be getting more information on that maybe tomorrow, but probably on Wednesday. So the first sentence type, we've talked a lot about prepositional phrases. So is putting a prepositional phrase at the beginning of the sentence. And the focus on that is making sure that there is a comma. So in class, I asked students to pick a theme. My theme is always going to be spiders. And they had to write a sentence with an introductory prepositional phrase. So mine is, in the morning, comma, Mrs. Culleton saw a spider crawling on her desk. And so when students read them in class, I make them use or say their comma out loud to make sure that we're using them. So just a couple of things about a prepositional phrase. It starts with one of the prepositions that we had to memorize on the list at the beginning of the school year, and then the phrase has to end with a noun. And we looked very closely to make sure that we were not putting verbs in there. So some sentences that the students gave me today in class. On Friday, comma, we went to the football game. On is one of our prepositions. Friday is a noun. We put a comma at the end of that phrase. And the thing about prepositional phrases is you can take them out. We could just say, we went to the football game. The prepositional phrase just adds some description. Somebody gave me the sentence today, after I ate breakfast, comma, I got on the bus. And so in looking at that sentence, it does look like it's a prepositional phrase. It starts with after, which is a preposition, ends with a noun, but the problem with this sentence is it has a verb in there, and prepositional phrases are not allowed to have verbs. They can only have modifiers. So to fix this sentence, we just took that out and changed it to after breakfast, I got on the bus. The next type of varied sentence structure starts with an adverb, and we've talked about adverbs as parts of speech. We've talked about them as they've come up in vocabulary, but we haven't really talked too much about them starting sentences. So we practiced this today. An adverb ends in ly and answers the 4 questions: how, when, where, and to what extent. And so all of these prepositional phrases, adverbs, are good ways to transition sentences together, connecting storylines together. So this one was quickly, comma, she called for help, but no one came. We talked about the fact that this has an additional comma because it's also a compound sentence. We've got our comma fanboy, which we worked on last week. Okay, so another one, immediately, comma, I called 911 when I saw flames in the kitchen. Immediately is the adverb. Because it's at the beginning of the sentence, it needs a comma. Happily, comma, I turned in the project that I had worked so hard on. Okay, happily is the adverb. Because it's at the beginning of the sentence, we put a comma after it. The next sentence type is any type of figurative language. It helps to add variety to writing. So we had simile, metaphors, personification. The spider laughed as she ran around the room screaming like a little girl. We've got here personification because the spider is laughing. And then we've got a simile like a little girl. Although the student said it would have been funnier if this was about a man teacher running around like a little girl. All right, so we could easily change similes to metaphors. I could change Billy was a screaming little girl when he dropped his ice cream cone. because he wasn't really a screaming little girl, but it gives us the image of somebody who's very upset and kind of pouting like a little girl might. Um, the clouds raced across the sky as the storm approached. So clouds do not race. That's a trait that humans would do, racing. So it gives us the image of the clouds speeding quickly across the sky. And a positive, and we have talked extensively about a positive so far this year. Mrs. Culleton stepped on the spider, comma, an eight-legged creature of death. And I had underlined death as the noun that's renaming spider, but it actually isn't. And so we went through this together and I said if of death is a prepositional phrase, then it cannot be the noun that's renaming the spider. Creature is actually the noun that renames the spider. So when in a positive, we always put a comma after the noun that we're going to describe, and there has to be another noun renaming it. The spider is a creature, and then we just add a lot of description around it. So I could say the bus, comma, an orange and brown monstrosity, comma, passed by my house. So monstrosity is the noun that's renaming the bus. Zeus, comma, the arrogant god of the skies, comma, was always cheating on his wife, comma, Hera. So there we have a couple of little appositives. And we've talked about the difference. An appositive that would be considered a smiley face trick actually has a lot of adjectives and description to it. I always tell the students they need 6 to 8 words in their appositive because just putting one word there, a noun, doesn't really add all that much description. So this is the part of the work that we did today in class on Monday, and I will do another screencast tomorrow as we go through the other remaining varied sentence types.